Hello, welcome to Hollywood Crime Scene. This is Rachel Fisher.
Hi, this is Desi Jedeikin. Of course, I was like, I'm going to hiccup right as you started, and I had to hide it from our loyal listeners. So we're back for part 2 of Horror Movie versus Reality, The Sacrament and Jonestown. My source for this episode is The Road to Jonestown, Jim Jones and the People's Temple by Jeff Gwynne. I did start watching the old TV movie that I saw as a kid. It's very funny because it starts with that, like, the events that happened. One of those, like, black and white screen warnings with the white type.
Yes.
And I was like, I can only imagine myself being like, holy shit. Because it almost plays off, like, I can think as a kid, I was like, did I think this was real? Because it kind of has that realistic look to it.
Yeah.
So it was very funny.
The Sacrament?
No, the original TV movie that I saw as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Powers Booth as Jim Jones. So that, I think he also really looks like Jim Jones.
Yeah. Because the Sacrament's also found footage.
Right, the Sacrament's found footage. This is not found footage, but it is very real seeming.
Yeah.
So it was funny to kind of look at that. So where we left off, Jim Jones has just officially created the People's Temple, and he's really trying to do good work and grow. At this point, his congregation is primarily older Black women. In addition to being a Karen for them, he and his wife often take in these women who need care and have no family to help them. This leads to them starting up several nursing homes, and these are high-quality, good care nursing homes. If you remember, Marceline is a former nurse. So he's legitimately helping people at this point. He's also getting access to whatever assets they have when they enter the nursing home, which is actually common in these situations. That's part of the deal, I think, when you enter this care facility. In order to pay for it, you often sign over your assets. So it's not really anything shady happening. He's also providing jobs for other congregation members who start working at these nursing homes. So all seems good. He starts up a successful soup kitchen that provides meals to thousands of Indianapolis residents. And he has clothing drives, stuff like that. But Jim wanted to help even more people. And unfortunately, he was not the greatest at schmoozing with the elite. And when your constituency is mostly older Black women, that's not really getting your foot in the doors of power, especially at that time. Fortunately for him, Marceline was very good at it. She came from a politically connected family. And Marceline, by the way, I want to say, really believed in this mission of helping people. And she does have a large role in the success of the People's Temple. Like, he literally could not have done it without her. Obviously, it ends horrible, but her intentions really were altruistic. We'll get more into her later, since obviously her role in all of this is hotly debated. I think we can all agree, though, she definitely enabled Jim Jones and his delusions. So what Marceline would do is go to these political type meetings, take notes about decorum, how to act, who to talk to, what to say, so that when Jim would come to the next meeting, he would fit right in and even stand out as someone important to watch. Very similar to how he would case the Pentecostal meetings of the revivals. So they're very savvy about this stuff. He also wanted to expand his reach in the religious hierarchy, and no one had more pull at the time, at least in the Pentecostal world, than Reverend Major Jealous Divine. Now, obviously, he came up with that name himself.
Jealous.
He wasn't born with that name. So Reverend Major he chose as a title that obviously has respect and authority. And jealous was a reference to Exodus 34:14, where the Lord says he is a jealous God. And he was like, that's God's name, jealous. So I'm also jealous.
What?
I'm jealous God. And his followers call him Father Divine. So he's a real character.
Mm-hmm.
He's very powerful. He's like 5'2", flashy dresser, and just like that kind of iconic religious character. He makes several pilgrimages to Father Divine in Philadelphia. I'm still like waking up in Philadelphia. And he begins implementing his practices and style. He kind of sees himself as the successor to Father Divine. And it's been described as very similar to the way white musicians will take a black music and then become hugely successful with it by kind of repackaging it. He does the same thing with Father Divine's shtick. Like, he takes it and he's like, here, I'm going to put a little spin on it, which is kind of funny because later on he does look like old Elvis. Like, his style, like,
he does.
His style kind of comes like he kind of has an Elvis thing happening. So Father Divine was very famous for integrating his congregation. He had a very tight control over his followers who believed he was God on earth. And much like many religious cult leaders before and after him, although he maintained strict rules about fucking, gambling, all that kind of stuff with his followers, he himself had his choice of vice and women whenever he wanted them, even though he was married. In fact, his control over his congregation was so strong that when his wife died in 1942, after he said he would heal her of her cancer, that's obviously really bad. It's a bad look for someone who claims to be God on earth. He had to improvise and was able to convince them that her spirit had entered the body of a 21-year-old white woman who would be his next wife.
Come on.
He was pushing 70, by the way. And he's like, my wife, she's returned
a young
to
girl.
me. She's a young 21-year-old. So technically his wife was still alive. And Jim really took that lesson to heart.
He's like, that's
as
a good
we'll see
one.
later.
That's a good move.
Yeah, he's like, I like that. Because it is all about getting out of your promises. So one of the more shocking things Jim discovered at his pilgrimage to Father Divine's was that Father Divine did not live in hand-me-downs, forsaking all material things like Jim Jones. He was in a mansion with naked women running around. He literally had a harem.
Oh my God.
And as I mentioned, he dressed sharp. Like, Jim is wearing stuff from the clothing drives. That was his, like, shtick, right? No material things.
So Jim is like, well, why am I wearing this shit?
Yeah.
Give me something cool.
Yeah, seriously. I don't want to wear these brown, dusty duds. It was kind of a wake-up call to the fact that once you hook people in, they'll buy any bullshit you feed them. And he even began planning the next body jump lie. No reason Father Divine's spirit couldn't jump into Jim's body when he died.
Oh, shit.
So his ministry is growing. His political outreach is having success.
This is like a really insensitive comedy movie.
Freaky Friday.
A really insensitive Freaky Friday movie from the 2000s.
Oh my God. So, and Jim and Marceline are continuing to expand what they call their rainbow family, which is also something he portrays the temple as. In 1954, I mentioned that they had adopted Agnes, who was part Native American. In 59, they adopt 3 Korean American children, Lou, Stephanie, and Suzanne, and encourage temple members to adopt orphans from war-ravaged Korea. Sadly, Stephanie dies in a car accident at the age of 5. Along with 5 temple members coming back from one of Jim's revivals. In June of 1959, him and Marceline have their only biological child, Stefan Gandhi. Okay. In 1961, they become the first white couple in Indiana to adopt a black child. He's Jim Jones Jr. And Jim states when he adopts this child, integration is a more personal thing with me now. It's a question of my son's future. So in Indianapolis, Mayor Charles Boswell actually appoints Jim Jones director of the local Human Rights Commission. He's warned to kind of keep a low profile, but of course he doesn't. And he uses this position to get on local radio and TV programs, putting his views out into the world. He also attends NAACP and Urban League meetings where gets the crowd into a frenzy, and he always caps his speeches with, "Let my people go."
Come on, dude.
I really wrote, "Okay, dude." Like, what the hell? By 1961, he had been instrumental in the desegregation of restaurants, hospitals, and just workplaces in general in Indianapolis. He's very aggressive with his tactics. He forces business owners to deal with him and his Black constituents that he brings with him, and kind of does sit-ins. Like, literally, he'll go in an off hour for a restaurant, like 3 to 5, fill up the restaurant with his Black flock or whatever, and pays for all these meals. So the owners are kind of like, well, I guess I'll overlook my racism because I'm actually earning a lot of money during these off hours when I'm earning nothing. When swastikas are painted on the homes of 2 Black families, he goes into the neighborhood with his flock, comforts the local Black community, and counsels white families not to move. He sets up sting operations to catch restaurants refusing service. He confronts the American Nazi Party and then gives their communication to the media to show their true colors. And when he collapses at some point and is hospitalized, just like whatever, exhaustion, the hospital accidentally places him in its Black ward, and he refuses to be moved. And he begins to make the beds and empty the bedpans of the Black patients, like helping them out in that ward. And that causes his actions there cause hospital officials to segregate the wards. So it's not surprising his congregation at this point is incredibly loyal. Some of these initial Indianapolis followers will go on to be his most loyal followers down the road as well. So an interesting thing he learns from Father Divine is that revolutionary leaders need enemies. And outside of the white supremacist, he doesn't really have any aggressive enemy. So he stages an assassination attempt to further his own egotistical desire to be seen as someone the powers that be are trying to stop. Now, the cops are like, this is shady, but they didn't really do anything with it. He took it to the pulpit, though, and everyone was like, oh, shit, you almost got assassinated. And he really wanted press for this. He was like, why isn't anyone talking about this more?
Stop it.
Well, yeah, there was a cover-up, a conspiracy, the deep state. We need to make a bigger deal about my assassination attempt. Here's a big Band-Aid on my ear, Nick. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah, it sounds very familiar. So with his growing fame and activism, though, he does finally get some more enemies. He's getting, like, as I mentioned, the unwanted attention from these vile white supremacists. And the People's Temple becomes a target of vandalism and threats. They have a swastika sprayed on their temple. A stick of dynamite is left in the temple coal pile. But all publicity is good publicity. So his activities attract a larger congregation. And by the end of 1961, Indianapolis was a far more racially integrated city. And this is not my opinion, but kind of this consensus that Jim Jones was almost entirely responsible for that.
That's crazy.
It's very crazy.
What's so chilling about this story is, like, yes, he did do these good things.
Well, I think you can, like, hand it to him a little bit more than other history villains, because he did do all this really good stuff.
He technically did, but at the same time, it was all to serve his own ego. And we see where that leads.
Yeah, and it's definitely a slow burn.
Yeah.
It's definitely a slow burn, but underneath it all, that seed was always there.
Right. I mean, just knowing the ending, how this story ends and how horrific it is, it's, like, chilling to hear him get all these people on his side for, like, doing these, like, righteous acts.
Yes. And it's interesting because, I mean, we see it a lot today where sometimes you'll see someone always talking about, like, what all the good things they're doing. And, partially it's because they want applause, but
right.
you're also like, well, at least they're doing something. Right? It's like that kind of thing. It's like, if that drives you, then good. But let's not go too crazy.
Yeah.
Let's not go Jim Jones.
Let's keep the self out of it as much as possible.
Especially on social media. It kind of can seem that way sometimes. It's like, okay, we get it. You're a good person. Or like so in 1961, he warns his congregation that he has received visions of a nuclear attack that will devastate Indianapolis. Now, his wife has started confiding in her friends that he's becoming a little increasingly paranoid and fearful. This is likely influenced by William Branham, a popular Pentecostal faith healer at the time who Jim admired. He had moved his congregation to South America in the 60s. And he had also had a prophecy in 1961 about the destruction of the United States in a nuclear war. Now, this is very common at this period of time. People were scared of a nuke. It's like,
yeah,
that's like, the Cold War is in full swing.
They had, like, drills in school.
Yeah. So Jones was like, I need to get into the doomsday prophecy biz. Like I haven't touched on that one yet.
That's hot.
It's hot right now. So he begins to look for a way to escape the destruction he believes was imminent. There's speculation there was also some investigation into his business, his church business at this point. So maybe that was really what was happening. In January of 1962, he reads an Esquire magazine article that says South America is the safest place to reside if you want to escape an impending nuclear war. So he decides to travel to South America and scout for a site to relocate the People's Temple. He's going to focus on Brazil, which at the time had an enormous population living in poverty. And he did make a stop on his way to Georgetown, Guyana. He held revival meetings in Guyana, and obviously the area left a mark with Jones, as we all know too well. So he continues on to Brazil. His family rents a 3-bedroom house in Belo Horizonte. This is the 6th largest city in Brazil. Unfortunately, he didn't think about the fact that he didn't speak Portuguese, which was an issue when it came to recruiting followers. When he is able to commute, he's careful not to say something, commute. When he is able to communicate, he's careful not to say anything about socialism or anything that stank of Marxism, which was not popular in South America. He focused instead on highlighting the commune lifestyle, which was definitely more appealing. People loved a commune in the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah, my mom lived on one.
They were a huge hit. In 63, he does move to Rio de Janeiro, and they work with the poor in the favelas, which basically translates to like the slums. Once again, he's focusing in on this marginalized community. Now, Jones will later tell a story of something that happened in Brazil. It's a story that would be kind of his go-to for a while, the one that everyone's like, seriously, again? It's like that story where it's like, we know. He tells it so much, but he loves this story because it highlights his devotion to the cause of socialism, but also illuminates the fact that he has a superior dick game.
This guy would have had the most annoying social media.
He's a total neckbeard.
He's a neckbeard, but he would have just,
He's like, I'm a socialist and a fuckboy. He would have killed.
He would have killed the game, but it would have been so irritating.
And then when he got finally canceled, we'd all be like, yay!
I knew it.
I knew it.
I knew that guy was
killed all those
creep.
people. He got canceled. So he claimed that a diplomat's wife was coming on to him, as many women in Brazil had. But she really wanted to hop on Jim's bone. She finally made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Sorry, I can't. She really wanted to hop on Jim's
She wanted to
bone.
get on that bone.
That bone.
She wanted to go to Bonestown. The Jones bone. Not Jonestown, Bonestown.
That's what I said. Bonestown.
Okay, I get it now. Bonestown. It made me think of, you know what? The blanks who bone.
Oh, yeah.
So she finally did make him an offer he couldn't refuse, though. She offered to donate $5,000 to the local orphanage for one night of dick. Now, it's like indecent proposal, but way more low budget and with people no one wants to see fucking.
Yeah.
It's like that. And he does get permission from Marceline. He takes this job very seriously because he also makes sure that the congregation knew not only did he get this donation, but he made that woman come harder than she ever had in her life.
Come on. This is the one of the many benefits to being this kind of a preacher. Is that you could make up any reason for doing any kind of thing in the name of this is what God wants.
Well, yes, this is the seed he's planting basically now. Sometimes you have to do something a little immoral for the greater good.
He's like, I hate to do this. I hate to put my dick in this lady.
Right. And you'll see this more when his followers help him do the fake healings.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we're faking, but we're getting more followers. So it's like he kind of gets them sort of primed for that kind of behavior. Besides that amazing donation for fucking, things were not going great in Brazil. And word on the street was they weren't going that great in Indianapolis either. During this period of his absence, regular attendance at People's Temple declined to less than 100. he was demanding that the People's Temple send him all the revenue in South America to support this effort. And they went into debt supporting this mission. In late 1963, his right-hand man sent word that the temple was about to collapse, and he threatened to resign if Jones didn't return and deal with this. But Jones was unwilling to admit failure in Brazil. Finally, he had a reason he could give for returning that wasn't I fucked up, and that was the assassination of JFK. So this was further proof the U.S. was falling apart, and he's like, I got to come back to help America. Brazil can wait.
Only I can do it.
Yeah. And this is an ongoing thing. He cannot admit failure because, like I said before, if he's God on earth, God doesn't fail.
Right.
And you have to constantly come up with reasons why, which is exhausting.
It's sort of like those doomsday people who were like, the world's going to end on this date. And then when it doesn't happen, they're like, that was a test.
Yeah, you constantly are scrambling. It's we've talked about this before, it seems exhausting to be a liar, a pathological liar. How do you keep up? So he reluctantly returns to Indiana. His person he left in charge, Russell Winberg, was basically beginning a coup. The People's Temple was now divided between the Winberg faction and the Jones faction. And Winberg eventually takes his flock and leaves the temple. Jones assumes when he comes back, it's going to be pretty easy to pick up where he left off, but he was wrong. He had completely lost grip of his congregation, and he was pissed because he's like, people are taking what I built and using it for their own, whatever.
Well, they're like, sorry, dude, you were down with the girl from Ipanema.
Yeah.
Hanging out on the beach.
Why don't you go back to fucking that broad and get more donations for the church? So he's also kind of mad that he doesn't have the respect and cachet in Indianapolis that he once did. The civil rights movement has moved on without him. And he's like, where's my credit? I started this shit.
The civil rights movement, it's about me.
Exactly.
This is really about me.
Yeah. And people are usually will cite this as the kind of first crack in his psyche, this sort of realization.
He's a malignant narcissist.
Yeah. So he's like, I fucking desegregated the city and you're not treating me like a god anymore. Obviously, this ups his controlling nature, his paranoia. People are clearly out to get him, have no respect for him. Whatever remaining followers he is now saying that he is a prophet and direct conduit to God. He was kind of tiptoeing around that before, but now he's like, you're right. It's true. It's true. I am God. So he's panicking and he goes back to that old strategy, claiming that the world would be engulfed by nuclear war on July 15th, 1967 in Indianapolis. For some reason, that's the hot spot. That's where they're going to hit first. And that the temple has to move, not to Brazil this time. Let's try Northern California. It's going to be safe there.
And it just happens to be the hot place.
Yeah.
In town.
Yeah.
We're just happy. What is this, 1967?
Yeah.
Let's go during the summer of love.
Right. Well, they're not going to San Francisco yet.
Where'd they go?
Well, his followers all agree. And in July of 1965, they have a car caravan and began moving to their new location in Redwood Valley, California, near Ukiah.
So they're a little early.
They're in the sticks.
Yeah.
So as they're leaving, Russell Winberg is like, he's abandoning Christianity. Which is true. He was not a Christian. He used it, but he didn't actually believe. But he got 140 people to go along with him, which is crazy.
Damn.
So, and this trip,
that's a tall order to get
from Indiana to
to go to Ukiah.
Yeah. So the trip was supposedly a jolly affair. It was people were excited. They're happy when they arrive. It's this, obviously Northern California is very beautiful. It's kind of the first day of camping, when you're kind of yeah, we can make s'mores. And then the next day you're like, what?
Yeah.
I need to go to a real bathroom. You're wiping with a leaf. It's not as fun as day one. And that's pretty much what happened. Have you ever been that camping?
No, Desi. I've never been that camping. That's what Desi imagines camping to be. Is by day one, you're like, we don't have any toilet paper left.
We're struggling.
We need to wipe with a leaf.
It wasn't long, though, after they arrived, they quickly realized that they were not welcome in Redwood Valley. So let's take a break and we will be back. So obviously, this very large group of predominantly Black people moving into this small racist hick town in Northern California got people's attention. They're like, what the hell's going on? So after initially settling in, some local reporters were like, let's look into this weird commune that had just moved in. And Jones heard about this and he swept in and charmed the local editors of these small town newspapers. The editors end up agreeing not to write about them. And Jones is like, I'll write some articles for you about the People's Temple. And they kind of cut this little deal. Now, it wasn't as easy, though, to charm the local racists who weren't happy about these new residents. Obviously, they are anti-Black, but they are also anti-anything that stunk of communism. This is obviously a little over 2 hours north of San Francisco, but it's a very conservative town. And they're very anti-war protesters. It's that kind of town. It's not what you think of when you're thinking San Francisco.
Because it's not.
It's not, but it's just, people I think are always California. And it's it's actually very conservative in certain areas.
Yeah, California is a big state.
Very big. So Temple members start referring to Redwood Valley as Redneck Valley.
Oh.
So they got the last laugh there, I guess. So they work tirelessly, though, to prove their worth. They obviously have this huge influx of income to this community because there's so many people existing there now that weren't before. So that kind of wins some people over. He's obviously not recruiting any new members from this town. So he and his followers start going into the local community college. They start attending it. He starts teaching at adult learning centers. And these are kind of in the surrounding areas. This allows him to kind of redirect his recruitment efforts to white people who aren't necessarily down and out, but they're disillusioned with society that isn't fair and just to all citizens. And these are people who are interested in helping to change that. So he also takes in people that are dealing with addiction, troubled teens, criminals.
Classic cult targets.
Yes, people that society has rejected. So these are also people whose lives he can really turn around. And he wants people who owe him something because that's how you get loyalty. So some of these people, especially the former criminals who are tougher, I guess, end up being his enforcers eventually one day. So, that happens when things get a little more messy. They actually do have a vetting process. They're not just taking in anyone. He really wants people with the right attitude, AKA I can manipulate them.
Yeah.
So like the best cult leaders, he is everything to everybody, which is obviously very exhausting. But despite all the hard work, things are kind of stagnant. It's not really growing much. He's really struggling with his decision to move there. He regrets leaving Indianapolis. But of course, like I mentioned, he cannot admit that he made a mistake moving to Redwood Valley. So he kind of low-key prays something soon is going to present itself and help him take things to the next level. And it happens. And that thing is the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. So he's going to take full advantage of this situation. Obviously, his congregation is devastated by King's death. They're genuine in that. And to some extent, he is as well. But he's going to also use that to benefit himself. Because in his opinion, he's in that same league.
He's so gross.
He's in the same league as Martin Luther King Jr. So he also, tells himself, if I do something that gets more people in the congregation and get more notoriety, that's going to be good for the cause of social justice. Ultimately, even if it was a little tacky, he begins to form a plan when he finds out that there is a massive memorial service for Martin Luther King Jr. that's going to be held in I think the biggest Black church in San Francisco. So all of the important local Black ministers in the Bay Area are speaking there. And Jim was like, this is it.
How can I make this about me?
Okay, that's his motto. So he and his flock go to the memorial service. His plan is that they'll go to the memorial service and then proselytize afterwards about all the good work they're doing up in Ukiah area. The day of the memorial service, he makes every single member of the People's Temple go, even if they have like work. He's like, you got to call in sick. We're going. They get into a caravan of jalopies. Like they truly have a bunch of fucking shit ass cars and they caravan down to San Francisco. As I said, this is like a 2+ hour drive. And they arrive 150 people. Many now white people are in this congregation. And it really makes an impression on the Black ministers who are like, wow, they drove 2.5 hours to get here. They're so impressed they actually invite Jim to also speak at the memorial.
Wow.
So when he goes up, he kind of knows the assignment. He's very humble. He's careful not to overshadow the other ministers. And he's able to speak about the work they're doing up in Ukiah. He actually invites them all to come up to Ukiah for a special community service that they're having in 2 weeks. Now, his members in the audience are like, what? What special service? So there was nothing planned. He just dropped that out of nowhere. So he's like, shit, they go to the emergency funds basically and withdraw every dime they have to start putting together this huge, community service that they think all of these, churchgoers in San Francisco are going to come up to see. So he customizes this program to appeal to this Black churchgoer, focusing on social justice, making sure that God and religion are key in the service, even though obviously, as I mentioned, he is not a believer. He's also going to bring back the healing. So he's like, we need to remove a few cancers. Let's go get the chicken guts. Put that on the budget list. We're going full stop, full out. So on the day of the service, the People's Temple, they all cleaned. It's like when your mom is like, people are coming over, and it's like so stressful to get everything ready. So they vacuumed, and they like all wait for them to arrive. And they're like, it's like, are they going to come? It's like waiting for Guffman. And they see the first bus, and then several more buses arrive after that. The event is a huge success. Temple members are instructed to become friends with these people and show them like the time of their life. They stay in contact, and visitors are invited to come up anytime, and transportation will be provided for them for free. So Jim is like, I want some of these guys. At future meetings, when these people arrive, he'll have his plants in the audience talking about how he helped them get their Social Security checks or got them through other bureaucratic nightmares. Now, little did these Black ministers know their congregation was finding a new place to go. Jim was like literally poaching followers. So he started this congregation, like I think at the end of the 60s, they were down to 86 members, which is down from who arrived with him. And they will eventually grow to 3,000 members by 1973. So 1969 was this year that the People's Temple really rebounded, but it's also the year Jim Jones officially begins to really unravel, like in a major way. So while Jim had these new followers and they were kind of getting the sunny version of the People's Temple, the old school followers were beginning to have access to this dark underbelly of what was really happening beneath the surface with Jim. They would have to go to these meetings that Jim would hold. They would be hours and hours long meetings where he would kind of ramble like incoherently sometimes. He started saying that he was in his past lives, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Marx. It's never just the common Frank.
No.
It's always these great people. They weren't allowed to go to the bathroom during these meetings. So it was kind of like early Est. And
Est, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom?
In the 70s, you weren't allowed to leave to go to the bathroom.
Ever?
I think. Even kids weren't. That's based on anecdotal evidence.
Wait. During the meetings, you weren't allowed to go to the bathroom?
No.
Period?
No, you weren't allowed to leave. It was like, I mean, obviously you could, I guess, do anything you want.
Wait, during an Est meeting?
Yes. You never heard this?
No.
No, it was like super like strict. Like you couldn't leave.
How long were the meetings?
You're all worried because you have to pee like 100 times an hour. Don't worry, you don't have to go, Rachel.
I'm not going to an EST meeting. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it was like, go to the bathroom and come to the meeting. And then you're here. It's like disrespectful.
Well, what if I really have to go?
I don't know. Pissed there, I guess. Now, I'm sure people were like holding it and shaking. Don't drink a lot of water before you go in. But he had set up, so behind his pulpit or whatever, he had set up a catheter system so he could just piss into like a bucket
That's cheating.
It is cheating.
That's cheating.
Well, that's the thing. He's starting to not follow his own rules.
I also don't want to follow a guy who's pissing at the pulpit.
Imagine you get a little glimpse of that.
The catheter.
And you're like, ugh.
I can't take you seriously.
You have to lose all respect. So he also starts doing things that test his powers over people. He'll give them strange orders like drink warm water and vinegar every morning just to see if they'll do it. Like it has no purpose except for him. And he kind of gets off when people do what he says.
Kind of sounds like a modern wellness.
Yeah. Yeah. So after the tragedy happens, obviously 10 years after this, one of the guys who left in 1970 said that he had been around for one of the first poison drinking tests. He said that Jim made a toast and everyone drank after the toast. And then after everyone drank, he told them all it was poison just to gauge their reactions. And then he said like, psych. He's like, just kidding. JK. Although eventually Jones would betray all who believed in him, the first major betrayal was his wife, Marceline. Now, despite the fact that Jones was still preaching about how much he made love to Marceline, the truth of the matter was she literally had her back blown out and couldn't fuck anymore. So she had been suffering from chronic back pain since childhood, and then she had that pregnancy, which pretty much like took her out. Anything could make her bedridden at this point, like just picking up something off the floor. She's like in bed for weeks. And especially sex. She can't have sex.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So that was not happening. At some point she goes into like a long-term traction. Like she is bedridden for a very long time in one of those traction things. Like she can't even move. And he's like, I need another woman to fuck. This is ridiculous. Enter 24-year-old Carolyn Layton. She is a local preacher's daughter who was sort of dabbling in the People's Temple. Only problem was she was dabbling in the People's Temple with her husband. She was married. That wasn't a problem for long, though, because she shocks her parents when she introduces them to her new pastor, tells them that her husband is in Reno getting a quickie divorce and that she's now with Jones. Now, her mom burst into tears because her parents were like, they saw him as like an Elmer Gantry, that con man made famous, played by Burt Lancaster. They were like onto him. They're like, this guy's a charlatan. Like, what are you doing? But they also were kind of like, well, we can't force her because that's not going to help. We just have to hope she sees it. Now, although many women in the congregation would have banged father, that's what they called him.
Gross.
Carolyn had qualities that Jim liked, very similar to Marceline. She was very smart and she was loyal to his cause and she was able to fuck. So that was her one benefit over Marceline. But it actually took a while to get her to go along with the plan. He even got numerous followers to help convince her, including Patty Cartwell, who I mentioned last episode. This is one of his most loyal followers. She kept going up to Carolyn and she's like, you gotta do this. For Jim to keep his powers going, he needs to nuts in someone. She's like on the case. And Carolyn, you've been chosen. So the tragic aspect of this is that when Jim confided this to Patty, that he needed her to convince Carolyn to do this, she was like, I'll do it.
Oh.
You can nut in me. And he told her that she was too large.
What?
Yes.
So after all this?
Yes. No, that's Patty, is not Carolyn. That's his loyal followers. She was like, I'll do it. I'll fuck you, father.
Oh my God.
And he's like,
so
no,
mean.
you're too large. And she still was his loyal follower. I would have left the cult.
I buy.
So he also has to get Marceline to go along with it. She's very beloved by the community. And if she leaves, like, it's probably over for the People's Temple. People are not going to put up with that. So Carolyn eventually agrees, and Marceline agrees as well. And her kind of thinking is, oh, he's going to get sick of this and move on. Like, it's not going to last long. So this was not a secret affair. He actually sits the whole family down for a family meeting and announces it.
I need to nut in this woman.
Basically, he's like, Carolyn is my special friend. I need to fuck her because mom is no longer sexually satisfying me. Like, he literally says that about the mom not sexually satisfying. Imagine, this is so 70s. It's like where you know too much about your parents' personal lives or something.
This is beyond that. This is sick.
Totally. But in an ultimate cuck move, Carolyn's ex still attends the church and becomes even more devoted to Jim, I guess proving some point, like, I don't know. And Jim eventually rewards him by hooking him up with someone in the church who's way hotter than Carolyn. So Carolyn's thrilled with this situation. She tells her mom, she's like, I have my own house and I only have to fuck him every other day. It's like an ideal situation. She's like living the sister wives setup. She likes her time off from Jim. Jim is blown away by what he's accomplished. He had several followers help him break up a marriage, help him betray his own vows just to get him what he needed. And he begins to think he could get them to do anything. Maybe he really was a god after all, which is never a good sign. So another key relationship begins around this time. He becomes close to a lawyer named Tim Sloan. He's impressed with the temple's commitment to social justice, and he begins doing legal aid for the temple. So he gets Jim out of a lot of little fucking kerfuffles. He also gets them on the track to become very financially successful. Jim begins doing more events in San Francisco, where obviously the collection plates are way more full. There's more money there. He starts doing shows in LA and across the country, like these revival shows where you can earn a shitload of money. Obviously, the more money rolls in, more members follow, including a woman named Terry Buford. She is a runaway teen who Jim takes in, and she begins working as a secretary for Tim Sloan. And she was also drawn to the temple because of their social justice work. Now, at this point, people are working real jobs to bring income into the temple, and they're working for the temple as well in various ways. So it's like a full-on commune at this point. Everyone puts all of their money into one pot that they earn, and it's controlled by Jim. And as Jim becomes more paranoid, a lot of the jobs at the temple become these security details, people watching things, people doing like the sinister investigations, like spying on people, all that kind of stuff. He demands of his followers, his demands of his followers become more sinister as well. He expects that all their time should be devoted to temple work. He doesn't even want them to take on lovers since those were distractions. And they were literally exhausted working for the temple. When they would complain, Jim said that he worked harder and was even more exhausted, but it was for a righteous cause. So people put up with it. Terry Buford would later say that he once said while looking over his kingdom that he had created, keep them poor and keep them tired and they'll never leave. So things continued to get weirder though as Jim tried to control more things. Like if it didn't happen naturally, he would just do things to make things happen because he was trying to keep these people dependent on him and force their loyalty. For instance, there would be more prophecies about horrible accidents awaiting his congregation members, and the only way to avoid it would be by believing in Jim Jones. And he would declare things like accident cycles were in effect, almost like Mercury in retrograde. So he's like, this is a peak accident time. You need to be extra loyal and listen to me. Otherwise, you're going to have an accident befall you. So this is obviously scaring people into loyalty. And when an accident didn't befall them, it was a miracle. It was also a great way to punish any rabble-rousers. And one of the first persons to be punished in these accident cycles was a man named Whitey Firestone. He's your basic fuck up. He actually, during one of these cycles, drives off a cliff with his family. So these are pretty windy roads, I guess, around here. And of course, Jim uses this I think it was an accident, a true accident, but Jim uses this as an example, like this fuck up, see what happened to him. He's not loyal. He also adds healing to the mix because they do go down to the accident site and everyone survives except for one child does die. So he's also like, see, and I helped them survive then after, even though he fucked up, I still was a generous person who did this for them.
Well, except for that one kid.
Yeah, the one kid had to pay the price of Whitey. So he was getting good at spinning things. And that's just how it kept going. Like if a follower would just die of natural causes, it was because they didn't listen to him about something. So maybe it would be wise to listen to me, even if you think I'm stupid, so you can see how this would be a sinister foundation that he's establishing. So he was in constant fear, though, of his failures. So this would lead to disillusionment on his part and depression. An obvious answer to his situation would be stop trying to do so much and accept that you have already created this successful entity. But of course, he felt like he was beyond any ordinary man, and that there should be no limits. Every day his ambition grew, and so did the pressure he put on himself. His biggest failure, though, came when Father Divine passed away, and he tried to claim the legacy of his followers and assets, everything. He goes to visit Mother Divine with a ton of his followers, but when he said Father's divine spirit had entered him, she got offended and kicked him out and his followers out. So the long drive back, he kind of formulates his story of what really happened. When they're back in Redwood Valley, he said that when he and Mother Divine were alone, that Mother Divine tore open her blouse and tried to fuck him. He said, she flaunted her sagging breast in my face, but I wasn't tempted.
Did not
he
say
did.
That.
He did. So he did manage to get some of Father Divine's followers, but ultimately Mother Divine retained the ministry, and despite his prophecy that she would die if she didn't concede to him, she did live decades longer and dragged his ass as late as 2014. She called him a charismatic charlatan. He used his charisma to hide his human weakness.
If somebody told a bunch of people that I've flaunted my saggy breasts at them, I'd be dragging them till the day I die.
I'd come out of the grave and be like, how dare you? So Father Divine's hold on his followers was never far from Jones's mind, as he often grumbled about his own followers not having that same sense of loyalty. And some people were like, he's jealous. He's like, he wants that hold over his followers and doesn't quite have it yet. So the pressure was getting to him. Much of this pressure stems from his mom. If you remember from the first episode, she said she was born to have a great man. And she was very invested in Jim's delusions because they validated her own delusions. Remember, she's the one who actually wanted to be great but didn't want to do anything to be great. A very relatable position. So now because he's so controlling, he doesn't really share this burden with other people. He likes to give this illusion that he has committees and advisory boards who have input, but it really is his way or the highway. He has to be involved in every detail of everything. His sermons from this period become more and more incoherent because he's operating on almost no sleep. The temple's well-being is really dependent on his well-being, which is not a great design when you have someone like Jim Jones.
What was that?
Fuck? Some notification.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So he began to do what he forbade others to do, spend time on non-temple business, such as going to movies, going on these little vacations. He would use temple money on this, which wasn't exactly embezzlement. It was a church expense. But even these little luxuries weren't doing it for him. So sometime in 1971, he turns to pills, amphetamines, and tranquilizers. Let's just say this only made things worse.
It's never a good sign when your cult leader gets hooked on amphetamines.
Well, he's doing the classic thing, keep me up, put me to sleep. Like back and forth nonstop, and it gets unhinged. We'll be back for part 3 with more of what happens when Jim Jones gets hooked on dolls.
Ooh. I'm looking forward to it, Desi. There's so much about this story, little details I just did not know. I'm learning so much.
Good.
We don't know how long this saga is going to be.
Oh, I think, well, next week we'll definitely will probably be in Jonestown, at least the beginnings, because they're there for a bit too.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think there's probably 2 more episodes, I'm guessing.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.